I heard the Lord say, trust me even in this. And I don't know what your this is. And oftentimes in life, we know how to figure some things out because we can kind of see what God is doing. But the Father says, even in this, He says, I need you to trust me like never before. He says, because if I did it before, I can do it again. Somebody just put at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to trust God in this. The Bible declares, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all of your ways, acknowledge Him and He will direct your path. And that's what the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to go back to old methods. He wants you to revert back to old things. But the Father says, you can trust me in this. I know it feels like it's difficult. I know it seems like you don't see your way through. But the Father says the same God who brought you here, He says, I'm the same God who's able to take you ahead. You can trust me in this. And where it seems like your faith has been shaking because of what you see, the Father says, pull on my history. He says, you can trust me even in this. He says, because I'm able to deliver you out of them all. So the Father says, trust me in this. Trust me even though you can't see it. Trust me even though it seems like it's difficult. Trust me in this. I didn't bring you out here to die. I didn't lead you out here to quit. I didn't lead you here, come on, to give up. He says, you can trust me right in the middle of it. And that's what the enemy does. He comes to play on your mind. He comes to play on your emotions. He comes to play on your heartstrings to get you to move out of position. But the Father says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. He says, for the Egyptians you see today, you shall see them again no longer. He says, this warfare is about moving you out of position so you will miss the inheritance. But the Father says, stand right there and watch me work it out. Stand right there and watch me get the glory. Stand right there and watch me make all things good. You can trust God in this. So what should be my posture? What should be my aim? He says, don't you revert back to the old. He says, now that you're in a new start, it's a fresh season. He says, I need you to embrace the tools that I'm giving you right now. Tools that's called prayer, tools that's called worship, tools that's called fasting. He says, don't you revert back to the old. He says, because it's not on you. It's on me. He says, so stand still. Be battle ready, but it's not your battle. So stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. He says, because you could trust me in this. He says, I know you had to fight in the last season and it seems like you've been swinging and you keep trying to hit the target. But the Father says, in this season, stand still. He says, because you can trust me in this. Don't you move. And that's what the enemy does. He gets our emotions stirred up. And our emotion says, wait a minute, I got this. Our emotion says, wait a minute, I'm not going to keep taking this. Our emotion says, wait a minute, you can handle this. But the Father says, I don't want you to do it in your own strength. He says, I want you to rely on me. He says, so trust me with your whole heart. Trust me that I know what I'm doing. He says, and watch me do it, even in this. Because the enemy wants you to think it's all on you. He wants you to think you in it by yourself. But the Father says, when you accepted me, He says, I came alongside you. He says, this is a partnership. He says, and the enemy is not even messing with you. He says, he's messing with the word that I have over your life. He says, so even while you're in it, trust me. Trust and see that what I said is going to prevail. Trust and see where you at is just temporary. Trust and just see this is just transition. So trust God in this. If you got to cry, trust God. If you got to walk away, trust God. If you got to make some adjustments, trust God. If you got to do something different, trust God. If you got to increase your prayer life, trust God. If you got to go on another fast, trust. Whatever you got to do, He says, trust me in this. Trust me. He said, don't you go out trying to put matters in your own hands. He said, but this is a season to trust me. This is a season to draw close. This is a season to say, you know what, God, I throw my hands up. God, listen, I've done all I can do. And that's sometimes the place God says it's all right to be in that place where you just have to throw your hands up. You say, God, I've done all I know how to do. I prayed about it. I cried over it. I fasted. And it seems like this mountain is not moving. The Father says, trust me in this. He said, you're going to see results. He says, because I cannot deny your faith. He said, you're going to see results. He says, and even though the enemy is taunting you in this season, he said, he going to have to pay you for the pain and the suffering. You can trust me with this one. Yeah, you can trust me that it's going to get better. You can trust me that it won't last always. You can trust me in this. So if you find yourself throwing your hands up, let your hands be thrown up to worship. Let your hands be thrown up to bless him. Let your hands be thrown up to give him glory. For the Father says, you can trust me even in this.